Welcome to this edition of Valor Media. This is episode number 101 for January 10th, 2022. I'm your host, Mark Appenzeller, and today I'd like to welcome you to a continuation of what we talked about in the first podcast episode of 2022 last week, an episode that I entitled A Model Year. We were celebrating our 100th episode, and that's a pretty exciting way to start 2022. I talked in last week's episode about the fact that I like to begin any new year kind of creating a mental model of what I hope to accomplish as the year unfolds. Have you ever done anything like that? I like to really not just have an idea about what I'd like to see happen, but I really like to start playing it out, developing some different scenarios. I'm a big fan of Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. You have to plan for contingencies. It's inevitable. No matter what we set out to do in life, it rarely works exactly the way we're thinking it will when we first get started. And I talked last week about the fact that some people allow failure to stop them in their tracks. They simply never try again. I've reached a point in my life where I pretty much anticipate failure because I know that it too is an inevitability. Failure is just part of life. We all fail at something. Sometimes we fail over and over and over again. But it really does come down to having the correct mindset that enables us to not just learn from mistakes that we've made, but to be able to apply that knowledge and that understanding in a way that enables us to do things we've never done before by trying things we may never have thought of had we not been faced with failure. Today's episode I'm entitling Like Nobody's Business. Have you ever heard that expression? You don't hear it as much anymore as you used to, but when I was a kid, it seemed like a lot of people my parents' age used that anytime they were describing particularly something like a kid riding a bike really fast or diving into playing rambunctiously. They'd say, "Wow, he's going at that like nobody's business." And it's such a strange idiom. I wondered where it got its origin because I've heard it my entire life, but it doesn't really make any sense, like nobody's business. Well, the origin of it is a little bit clouded in mystery, but one of the first documented uses of the phrase like nobody's business occurred in 1938, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. And it was a phrase that was used in a writing by the English author and humorist P.G. Wodehouse. He had a sentence in one of his books that said, "The fount of memory spouting like nobody's business." And so, because he was a popular author, that certainly was a catalyst for it to become introduced a little bit more into the common everyday vernacular. But what does it mean, like nobody's business? What it's alluding to is the fact that you're doing something in a way that no one else can touch. You're embracing something that is so distinctive and unique, and you're doing something in a way that sets you apart from the crowd. And that's why I picked that idiom as the title for today's episode, because as you move into 2022 and undertake whatever it is that you want to do vocationally, there's a pretty high probability that you want to do things in a way that is distinctive, especially if you're trying to build something new that doesn't exist right now. I've talked many times about all the different questions you need to ask yourself when you start a new business, or maybe you establish a nonprofit. Maybe you put together some sort of a social services agency, a network organization, a church committee. It can be any situation where you're pulling your time and your talent and your energy and your efforts with other people to accomplish something. I always talk about that being an organization. I love to use the word organization because it really does, to me, sum everything up. Because first of all, we better be organized when we're working with other people. If not, that's a recipe for chaos. And the idea of an organization is that it really is a collective that is so much larger than just the sum of its parts. If we come together with people who are like-minded and we figure really tangible ways to integrate our skills and our interests with what they're doing, we can accomplish things we never could have imagined. And so it's very much from that perspective as well that I wanted to talk about this idea of like nobody's business. It's been a really amazing 2 years. The American workforce has undergone some of the most dramatic changes, things we never could have anticipated. The way we go about doing business has forever been altered, particularly throughout the latter half of 2020 and into 2021. So many different businesses and organizations had to grapple with the fact that they couldn't do things the way they always had. And I've commented before that those who embraced the change undoubtedly found ways to grow and hopefully prosper. But the ones who kind of went kicking and screaming, who resisted changing, who didn't want to look at an entirely new approach because it was either overwhelming or seemed like just too much bother, well, maybe they didn't enjoy the success they were hoping, and worst case scenario, maybe they fell by the wayside. I think there are a lot of organizations and businesses that simply caved over the last 2 years because they weren't willing to try to adapt. They wanted to do things status quo. The old way worked. They made money, they had success, they accomplished their goals. But what they failed to realize was that the conditions of society and the world were now dictating that those old approaches were no longer going to be applicable. So for individuals who had the foresight to say, well, then this might be a good time to learn something new, well, then the sky was the limit. I think many organizations and businesses probably enjoyed growth that they never would have anticipated by embracing those new things, because that meant learning how to operate in technological environments that maybe they never considered before. Now, we're probably to some extent all tired of the whole concept of teleconferencing, but you can't deny it's amazing that you can have a meeting with somebody on the other side of the world. It really does enable you in real time to have the ability to come together and interact in a way that really transcends what you could do even on a phone call. So there are always positives and negatives, benefits and issues, and you have to really look at everything with a very sober and very open-minded perspective. I'm a big fan of weeding out the stuff that doesn't work and isn't successful and focusing on the things that are the big wins. And sometimes the big wins are the little wins. So if you are undertaking something in 2022, trying to either start a new business or a nonprofit, or maybe to just branch out in whatever sphere you're already operating, I want to encourage you to do it like nobody's business. Now, what in the world do I mean by that? Diving in head first, tackling things in a way that may be loud and noisy and messy, but is also brave and daring, pushing back boundaries, tackling new frontiers, putting your feet in uncertain territory. That can be a terrifying thing to do. There's no guarantee that you'll find success, but remember what I said last week. If you find failure, welcome to the human race. You'll find a lot more in the days to come. But remember, it's not permanent unless you make it permanent. It's temporary. You will fail, so learn what caused you to fail. Apply all that knowledge together toward whatever it is you're pursuing. And in the future, you'll not only avoid the pitfalls that you stumbled into before, but you may discover something you never knew existed. If we do something like nobody's business, the way in which we're doing it is extremely, excessively, very much. We might be doing it very quickly. We might be doing it with tremendous passion, zeal, and enthusiasm. But undeniably, to outsiders, to the people on the fringe watching us do it, it will be an attention grabber. And I'm not talking about doing something to show off or doing something just for attention's sake. But what I mean is, if we can do something like nobody's business, we're coming into it with an intentionality to really find our own unique approach. And that's the thing I want to encourage you the most in whatever you try to undertake during 2022. Really come into it with a determination to stand out from the crowd. There are so many people in so many different spheres of life all trying to do the same thing. I am not a fan of competition. I am a big fan of collaboration. I don't want to edge somebody else out or try to get an advantage over somebody. The whole dog-eat-dog world thing turns me stone cold. But I love the idea of collaborating, of helping other people, of bringing the talents and the abilities that I have into a forum that can maybe enrich somebody else's experience, save somebody else some time. I happen to believe that if we can help other people along, there's success enough for all of us. It's not like it's a finite thing. Everybody can succeed. And wouldn't it be a much better world if we really worked together to help each other succeed? So whatever it is you do in 2022, try to do it in a way that is also blessing other people. Because I've learned this myself. If you can do things for other people, if you can help somebody else out, you're helping yourself out. Don't make it all about you. Make it about learning and then taking that knowledge and sharing it. Everything doesn't have to be a monetary exchange. Everything doesn't have to be trying to stake your foothold in the market. Now, I definitely understand business is business, and certainly you have to do things in an environment where there are other people trying to get clients or customers, and you may be offering very similar services or products. But instead of trying to edge somebody out, find your own distinct approach. I think every single human being has such a unique personality that whatever we put our time, talent, and effort toward, it'll have our stamp, our imprint on it. Because God created every single one of us uniquely. And so even if we're doing something that somebody else is doing, if we're true to ourselves and if we really embrace our own vision, then what we're doing will look different because we are different. Competition is generally defined as falling into three distinct categories: direct, indirect, and what's called replacement competition. Now, in direct competition, you can have a scenario where there are different companies or individuals who are selling the same product or providing the same service as their competitor is. They're targeting the same group of people, and they're basically meeting the same need. That is probably the most difficult type of environment to operate in, because you're doing the exact same thing in the exact same way that so many other people are. It would be like everybody in the state of Vermont opening up a lemonade stand. Somebody might be really good at making lemonade and somebody might be really terrible at making it, but wow, everywhere you turned, there would be lemonade, and somebody would have to figure out a way to go through, decipher what was good, what was bad, what was worth drinking, what was worth dumping on the pavement. That's what can happen when you really have that direct competition. Now, indirect competition occurs when different individuals or companies are selling products or providing services that aren't exactly the same as a competitor, but they're still aimed at the same target group and they still meet the same need. It's kind of coming at it from a slightly different approach. That's beginning to embrace that individuality. It's beginning to have your own identity. But what is really the most innovative type of competition, and one that isn't about trying to edge out the other guy, is what's known as replacement competition. And that's where you end up selling a product or providing a service that actually replaces the existing ones that your competitors are providing. And you do it by providing a totally new solution to meet whatever need they've been meeting. There are so many different examples in life. That happens a lot of times when new technology comes along. That would be like, for years and years, American businesses using adding machines. But then the calculator got developed, and it wasn't simply an improvement on the adding machine. It was a radical change, because now on a calculator, you could do scientific calculations and percentages and things that simply were never going to exist in the realm of the adding machine. It changed the game. Another one that I know personally is the whole idea of how PCs replaced word processors. I remember back in the very early 90s when typewriters were beginning to fade, I wanted a word processor. It was terrible. It had a liquid crystal diode display. You could just barely read it when you typed. Very faint gray letters on a slightly lighter gray background. But to me, in that moment, it was an exciting change from a typewriter because now I could actually save a file with whatever it was I was typing. But what happened was personal computers, in a very dramatic way, along with all the other things that they could do, stepped in and completely redefined how we create documents. Somebody could have just developed the word processor a little bit more, tweaked it, refined it, but computers changed all of that because now we had the ability to do not just document creation, but adding images, manipulating them, using hundreds or thousands of different fonts and colors, and being able to take images and documents and immediately uploading them to the internet, sending them attached to an email, or today share them on the cloud. And so it was the simple fact that the advent of the personal computer became a replacement competition. It wasn't simply bettering what was being done, it was changing it forever. It was adding not just the ability to do document manipulation, but all the myriad of things that computers can do. And it completely took the idea of word processing into a radically different direction. So what it really comes down to is, I think that's the best kind of approach to take. And the whole idea of competition, don't worry so much about what the other guy is doing. Now definitely, look at who is in the field you're trying to step into, whatever your sphere is. If you want to do something, see if somebody else is doing it. And if somebody else is doing the exact same thing that you wanted to do, don't give up. Be creative. Look for replacement competition. Find a way to address whatever the need is coming from a completely different perspective. It'll force you to become more inventive, creative, innovative. And if you can come up with something that meets the need but does it in a revolutionary way, the sky's the limit. That's how you really set yourself apart from the crowd. And the great thing there is it will force you to compete against the only person you should be competing against, yourself. You want to constantly be trying to better what you've done before. Don't try to outdo somebody else. Try to outdo yourself. That's how you grow, and that's how, when you do face failure, that you can pick up the pieces and move on. So I hope this has helped you for whatever you might be trying to undertake this year, to just get in your own mind's eye a clearer picture of the type of approach you should take. But the whole idea of trying to do something new, trying to take a radically different approach, can be really overwhelming. There are so many moving pieces in anything that we do, and you may feel like you don't really know how to even identify what those pieces are. If you find yourself wanting to be innovative, wanting to move forward and embrace a great idea that you're working on, but you really don't know where to start, Valor can help. There's a division of Valor Ministries called Valor Excel. Valor Excel is a distillation of all the practical experience that we've gained over the years operating as a small nonprofit. And our goal is to share that knowledge base with others. We want to help you to develop whatever it is you're trying to, not doing it for you, but giving you tools that will help you to truly do smart work. You can contact us at info@valorexcel.com, and someone from our team will get back in touch with you so that we can begin to discuss ways to help you reach your vocational goals. Learn more about our services by visiting us on Facebook at Valor Excel or our website www.valorexcel.com. As we continue throughout 2022, we want the Valor Media podcast for both your personal life and your business life to be a source of encouragement, inspiration, and enrichment. If you have ideas for topics that you think would be beneficial for us to discuss, you can contact us at media@thevalorcenter.org. You can learn more about the overall mission and vision of Valor Ministries by visiting us on Facebook at Valor Ministries or our website www.thevalorcenter.org. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. We publish a new episode each Monday. The overall goal of Valor Ministries is to inspire individuals to move from crisis to thriving, and we have some great resources to help you. If you visit www.thevalorcenter.org and click on the Products tab, you can check out a book written by our Executive Director, Lori Riston, called You Were Made to Thrive, 7 Strategies to Move You from Crisis to Thriving. You can also find the companion workbook, and both books are also available on Amazon.com. On the Valor website, under the Merchandise option, you can check out various items that embrace that whole idea of moving from crisis to thriving. Inspire yourself on a daily basis with encouraging, inspirational reminders on hats, t-shirts, and mugs. Check out all the newest designs under Merchandise on www.thevalorcenter.org. If you're blessed by the Valor Media podcast, would you consider blessing us in 2022? Would you financially support us so that we can continue to bring you weekly content? If so, you can make your tax-deductible donation securely online by visiting www.thevalorcenter.org and clicking on the Donate button. Or you can send a check or money order to Valor Ministries, 324 East Antietam Street, Suite 104, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21740. Thanks again for joining me today. Please come back again next week when your host will be Lori Riston. And until then, remember this: you were made to thrive.